This video contains descriptions of disturbing scenarios that some viewers may find distressing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to, or welcome back to, the Agatha May Detective Agency. I'm Agatha May, and this episode is the second video in the series about Tony Mitchell. I'll leave a link to the first video and would recommend watching that one first if you haven't already, so you have a background of this case. As a brief recap of the previous video, Tony Mitchell died in 2023 while in custody at the Walker County Jail in Jasper, Alabama. His death was ruled a homicide, and the cause was hypothermia and sepsis that were a direct result of the abuse he suffered in jail. Tony's family filed a lawsuit, and that prompted a federal investigation. So far in the investigation, 10 staff members from the jail have been charged in Tony's death, and 2 sheriff's deputies have been charged with unreasonable force that occurred when they arrested him. One of the individuals named in the lawsuit is the sheriff of Walker County, Nicholas Lee Smith. Smith was elected in 2018 and has held the position ever since. He's in the middle of a campaign right now, and boy howdy has it gone sideways for him. He does still have supporters, but it seems that more and more of his constituents are calling for his resignation. I think he should listen to them. In my opinion, he has not handled the fallout from the Tony Mitchell case very well at all. I've watched some clips of him speaking, and he either needs to stop talking or he needs to make different words come out of his mouth. But let's back up and look at what was happening with Nikki Lee back in 2023. The day after Tony was arrested, Nick Smith made a Facebook post about Tony's arrest. He wrote about what a great job his team did and how proud he was of them. He also wrote that he was at the scene and watched as the SWAT team swooped in and how they took the, quote, armed subject down without any deputy or suspect injuries. So, did he watch his deputies when they allegedly physically assaulted Tony at that scene? Because I'd consider getting stomped in the groin, being rammed into a car, and then having his legs kicked, injuring the suspect. Maybe Nick was busy, I don't know, chasing a raccoon that had scampered into the woods or something like that while the alleged assault was happening. 5 days after Tony was arrested, Nick was telling the public that mental health counseling was available for every single inmate that was booked into the jail. Well, how magnanimous of him. So you can talk to a counselor, but you can't get taken to the hospital when you're in severe need of medical and mental health care. Smith was also busy attending the swearing-in ceremony for his second term as sheriff. Quote, tomorrow, Tuesday, will be the swearing-in ceremony for my second term. I'd love to see you there. Also, I invite any local pastor to come and help us pray for safety of our complete department afterwards. Hope to see you there. End quote. So while Tony Mitchell was dying in Nick Smith's jail, Nick was inviting pastors to come pray for the safety of his complete department. The sheriff's department issued a statement following Tony's death. Quote, on Thursday, January 27th, an inmate in the Walker County Jail was provided a routine medical check by jail medical staff. Medical staff determined the inmate needed to be transported to the hospital for further evaluation. The inmate was alert and conscious when he left the facility and arrived at the hospital. Shortly after arrival at the hospital, the inmate suffered a medical emergency and became unresponsive. Life-saving efforts were performed by hospital staff, and the inmate was ultimately revived. Unfortunately, a short time later, the inmate passed away. It is unknown at this time what contributed to his death. Even though the inmate's death did not occur in the jail, he was still in police custody, so standard protocol was followed, and ALEA, the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, was contacted. SBI agents began an immediate investigation into the incident. End quote. Once the video of Tony having to be carried to the patrol car to be transferred to the hospital from jail was leaked, everyone knew that statement was a big fat lie. Here's part of an article that was published by ABC 3340 on March 29, 2023 about Tony's death. We ask that people be patient and not so quick to judgment, remarked Smith. He explained with 100 cameras in the jail, investigators have a full picture of what happened in the days and weeks leading up to Mitchell's death. Something happens. There's outrage. Then you find out it's not like they portrayed, said Smith. He said he is frustrated but must wait until the investigation is complete to give a full response. The sheriff strongly defended jail operations under his tenure. He claims that overall the jail is safer today and in better condition than when he took over as sheriff. He also said there is a greater emphasis on medical and mental health care than ever before. You know, that's kind of like poisoning someone and then saying, well, at least I only gave him a half a cup of poison. I could have given him the whole gallon. So please praise me and tell me what a good job I'm doing. Nick is either unaware of what is happening inside the jail he's responsible for, or he just doesn't care what's happening. Even with 2 of his own deputies being charged, he's denying knowledge of any wrongdoing.
When an indictment comes about, then discovery will come about. And when that discovery comes about, I think that there'll be a different side of the story. Like I said, there's always 2 sides of the story, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. Yeah. Perfect. And again, I don't know all the facts.
Well, the problem with that, Nick, is that the other person can't tell his side because your jail staff killed him, you walnut. So you saying something like that just makes you look obtuse at best, but it also makes you look cruel. Read the room, Nick. And the cherry on top of this trash sundae is that the indicted deputies are on paid leave pending the investigation. According to Nick, the reason that they're being paid is because if the cases against them get dropped or if they're found innocent, then the county would have to give them back pay plus interest. So far, the FBI has made deals for 9 of the 10 jail staff indicted, and the 10th originally pleaded guilty but then changed his mind because he's dumb. Odds are that the 2 deputies are going to make some kind of deal. If they are found guilty, do they have to repay the county, aka the taxpayers, their pay plus interest? Or do they just get to sit on their cans and collect a check? A couple of days after his deputies were indicted, Nick decided that it might be a good idea to take down all of his Facebook pages, which included his personal page, the sheriff's department page, and his campaign page. He released a statement about the takedown. Quote, "It's no secret that our department and this country have been going through an unprecedentedly difficult time. And while I understand everyone's varied thoughts and opinions, I no longer see a reason to provide a platform for hate, negativity, and vitriol. Our Facebook page isn't necessary. We aren't required to maintain one, and once the purpose of our page was lost, it was time to let it go. Everything that was ever posted was done with the intention to be transparent and informative to the public. Unfortunately, I don't think certain parts of the public were ready to be that informed." End quote. Well, what a delightfully smarmy statement. I'm sure the residents of Walker County just love being talked down to by their sheriff. What Nick considered hate might have been citizens telling him exactly what they thought of his actions. He doesn't like when that happens. In fact, when he didn't want to hear what the people in Walker County really thought about what he was doing, he'd just turn off commenting on a post. Oh, Nick, you precocious little twit. I'm sure that taking down your pages had absolutely nothing to do with your 2 deputies being indicted. We believe you. Wink, wink. Even though Walker County residents aren't happy with Ridiculous Nicholas and are calling for his resignation, Nick says he's not going anywhere.
One thing I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not quitting. I'm not running from the problem. I've just been limited to what I can say, but you can rest assured I'm not running from a problem.
See, he's not running away. He's just hiding. I don't know how to tell you this, Nick, you little stinker, but you are one of the problems. Maybe even one of the biggest problems. I've done some digging, and it seems that Walker County Jail has been toxic since way before Nick inherited it. I'm going to make a separate video about the history of the jail, but I want to cover some of the deaths that have happened there in the past 7 years. Autumn Harris was in the Walker County Jail in 2018 on a failure to appear charge that stemmed from a misdemeanor. When she entered the jail, she had pneumonia and already had medications for it, and they were given to the nurse on duty at the jail. There is no evidence that Autumn was ever given her medication, and she died after being in the jail for 3 weeks. The fluid in her lungs was 4 times that of a healthy person. She was only 34. Her family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the former medical director of the jail, Dr. Roger Childers. The problem with him being the medical director of the jail is that he's not really a doctor, at least not a medical doctor. He's a registered nurse and has a doctorate in business administration, but allegedly he presented himself as Dr. Childers at the jail. On May 1st, 2018, Brian Michael Freeman, age 37, died at the Walker County Jail. It was later reported that he had died by hanging. August 2018, Mark Allen Scott died from health issues that worsened while at the jail. July 2019, Mindy Dawn Tidwell died after being beaten by 2 other inmates in the booking area. The 2 inmates were only charged with misdemeanor assault. August 12, 2019, Mitchell Smothers died after being admitted to the hospital with sepsis secondary to cellulitis, a severe UTI, acute kidney injury, and metabolic acidosis. He had been in Walker County Jail for 6 months, and guess who was still the medical director? Yep, Roger was sued again and was finally dismissed from the jail sometime after this. According to the lawsuit filed against him, the plaintiff wrote, quote, Sheriff Nick Smith knew Childers and PFHS provided inadequate medical care to inmates, and he pleaded with Walker County to terminate its contract with Childers and PFHS. Sheriff Smith then implemented a policy requiring jailers to call an ambulance for inmates with medical needs so they could be diagnosed and treated by a doctor. Because this policy increased cost, Walker County insisted Sheriff Smith withdraw the policy. Sheriff Smith then directed Childers to directly notify him daily about any sick inmate, end quote. So PFHS is Preemptive Forensic Health Solution, and it's owned by, you guessed it, Roger Childers. Here is the letter that Nick Smith sent to jail staff about the new policy in 2019. Quote, effective immediately and until further notice, any inmate that expresses physical illness or pain to any member of the jail staff will be treated as soon as possible by RPS paramedics. We will no longer contact our medical staff for an evaluation first. 911 will be contacted first, then our medical staff will be contacted. RPS's ability to respond immediately affords us the best opportunity to provide medical evaluation and care to our inmates as quickly as possible. RPS's recommendation for treatment will be fully adhered to, and any incident resulting in an inmate's transport to the hospital will require the accompaniment of a CO. In the event that an inmate is sick or injured, the CO taking the complaint is to refer the complaint to their direct supervisor, who will then be responsible for contacting 911. A thorough report is to be written detailing the nature of the incident and any contributing factors that may be pertinent to the cause of the injury or sickness, and any aftercare instructions are to be referred to jail medical staff. End quote. I don't know that calling 911 for every illness or pain is a very good solution. But why wasn't there already a policy that jailers could call 911 if there was an emergency? And was the Walker County that insisted that Smith withdraw the policy the same Walker County Board of Commissioners that just this week made a statement about how they can only do so much with the Sheriff's Department and they let Smith run it how he sees fit? I wonder if the same policy of notifying the sheriff about any sick inmate is still in place. If not, why not? And if so, that would mean that Smith knew about Tony Mitchell's condition. We might be done with Roger for this video, but he's going to be back in a video all his own. Cyrus Jermaine Theus, 47, suffered a suspected medical emergency while in custody at Walker County Jail and died on April 19, 2024. The medical emergency was reported as happening at 9:15 that night, but the coroner reported that Cyrus was pronounced dead in the early morning hours of the 20th. The Alabama Law Enforcement Agency investigated, but I wasn't able to find any results of that investigation. So this is only half of the deaths that have occurred at Walker County Jail in the past 10 years. There have been 14 total. 4 of those were suicides by hanging and the other 10 were medical conditions. If it seems like that's a lot of deaths for one jail, it's because it is. By comparison, other county jails in Alabama that are similar sizes have much lower death counts. But Nick doesn't let that bother him. He was quoted as saying that whenever there is a death in the Walker County Jail, it gets a lot of attention, even though tragically deaths happen all over the country. And in an article posted on corrections1.com on April 28, 2024, Smith was quoted as saying, quote, "Jail deaths, though regrettable, are not uncommon nationwide. Under the previous administration, there were 9 such incidents in a 4-year period, whereas during my tenure, spanning 6.5 years, there have been 4. Nick was elected in 2018, and his reign as sheriff of the land didn't begin until January of 2019. I'm not sure what kind of math he was doing, but in April of 2024, he had only been sheriff for 5 years and 3 months. I guess 6.5 months sounds better, though, at least to Nick. Personally, I think it sounds horrible for him to say that he's doing better because he's only had 4 people die under his tenure. I'm not sure that's really a flex, champ, especially since one of the deaths was a homicide committed by your own staff. Sheriff Nick Smith has been deflecting ever since the news of Tony Mitchell's death broke. He is only making things worse by not accepting responsibility for the deaths that happened in his jail. He is ultimately the one in charge of the jail and of his deputies. It seems to me that there is a climate of abuse in both entities, and Nick isn't promising to change that or even admitting that it's happening. Instead, he's throwing out ridiculous claims like he doesn't know all the facts. He stated that he hasn't even seen the surveillance footage from when Tony was in jail. Well, that's pretty weird because his name is the first on the list in the lawsuit that Tony's family has filed. And there are descriptions of what was seen on that video by the plaintiff and her attorney in that lawsuit. So are we supposed to believe that Nick's attorney hasn't shown him those videos? At this point, I think Nick needs to listen to the people of Walker County and just resign. He seems to want to blame the county commissioners for conditions at the jail, and the commissioners say they have no control over the jail. Walker County needs to start some serious housekeeping. But from what I've seen, no one in power wants to hold the broom and dustpan. Stay tuned for another video about Walker County soon. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe as this helps my channel grow. Until next time, stay safe and be happy.